Okay, so at this point you are finished with your check register, and the amount in the balance column should match what it says on your paper. So if we look underneath January, it told us after the January 28th transaction, the balance of your spreadsheet should be $378. Remember, it's not going to tell you that every time on here, so you can't rely on this piece of paper. You have to rely on doing these in order and making sure that you are diligent with them. So your transaction book should look something like this. We've got 6 transactions. So now, since we are done with January, we now need to hop over to page 5. Okay, so we're going to move to page 5, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it over. Sorry if that's loud in the thing. Okay, so on this piece of paper, we have some things going on. Okay, so I'm going to make the same markings that I made on the sheets that you're going to find around the room so that you can understand why they look the way they do. So for starters, it tells you your instructions down here, okay, because technically the rest of this at the top, you can kind of split that paper in half. This is your statement from the bank, okay? So you're going to use this statement to do what's called reconciling your account. So you're making sure that what they said happened actually happened, and then you're also taking account of what the bank statement doesn't include. Okay, so that'll make more sense here in just a moment. So for starters, I circled the dates on all these so that you could find them, and I labeled them. Okay, so this is the January statement, so we should be looking at the January transactions. Okay, and what I like to do is I like to come over here right next to these and just put a J. Okay, and you could even put, oh sorry, I guess I could get closer. I like to come over to the right of the balances and put a J next to all the Januaries. And you could even make it say January if you wanted to, and I'll show you a little shortcut. You can, well, if I could use my mouse right, you can click on where you typed January and then just drag it down. So, of course, I didn't want it to do that. So I'm going to hit undo, just do your days. So I like to mark it like that just so that I can know, because later when you have a full book of transactions, you're going to have a bunch of transactions down here. And so if you don't have things labeled as January and then February and March and April, then it'll be kind of hard to find them later. So on our statement page, I've circled the date. We need to keep this service charge in mind, but I'm going to break down the rest of the page first. This is your account summary, and I don't have quite all these markings on these pieces of paper over here. But of your account summary, we're going to use this $723. That's your ending balance, and we're going to use it somewhere else. And then these are the checks and deposits. These are the transactions that your bank statement includes. Okay, so what we're trying to figure out is everything included and what's not included so that we can include it. Okay, so step 1, and I'm going to mark it on this sheet. Step 1 is to add this $5 service charge, okay, because this balance right here is taking into effect that $5 service charge. So we're going to go add that before we do anything else. Okay, so we're going to come to our transaction book, and just so you know, you will literally do this every time. Every month there's a service fee of $5. So we're going to use the statement date, and the statement date was circled up at the top right of the piece of paper. So we're going to use the statement date, 1/31, and I'm putting it in the, I hate how the check number is first. I think the check number should be second. 1/31, and we're just going to call it service charge. And it's $5. Okay, so once we do that, that's our final transaction for January. So we'll go ahead and put a J on there too. And our transaction amount is now $373. Okay, that number will come in handy here in just a moment. So back to this document. You're going to kind of bounce back and forth between the computer and your paper. So I'm sorry if I make you a little bit dizzy, but we're going to kind of bounce back and forth. So our first step, I'm going to switch over to this highlighter. We are trying to find these transactions on our computer, okay, and it's kind of a two-step process. So we're going to be using this C column here, And when we see it on this piece of paper, we're going to highlight it, and then we're also going to go back to the computer and mark an X on that C column. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so $700 deposit. Do we see it on the account? Deposit, 700, yes. So we're going to make an X in that C column for that deposit. Okay, and then we're going to move down to the next one. And then before we move on, we're going to come over here and we're going to highlight it. Or you can, with your pencil, you can just make a check mark if you want to do that, whatever works for you. Okay, so next, we're going to find check 101 and figure out where that is. Okay, so check number 101 just happens to be the next line, $50. We see that. Okay, so we're going to mark it off on here too. Okay, the next one, check 102, $35. Okay, so check 102, $35. That one has cleared. So we're going to do our X and we're going to mark it off. Okay, the next one, check number 103, $87. Okay, so that just happens to be the next one. Sorry if that's hard to see. Check 103, $87. Okay, and just so you know, you do need to check them in order. There are some checks that don't get cleared for 2 months. Maybe that person forgot to run it to the bank for a while, I don't know. But sometimes that happens. So don't just make your X's over here. Don't just start making a bunch of X's and highlighting things and calling it good to go, because the next process, you're going to need the right numbers. Okay, so our final transaction that we're looking for is a deposit of $200. So we're going to come over here. We see a deposit of $200. And I'm not looking at the dates because I'm trying to not make you dizzy, but you do need to be looking at the dates when you do this because some of the numbers will be the same. So the dates will be important. Okay, so you'll notice that we have the service charge will always not be reflected in this area because it was listed up here. Okay, so we're just trying to figure out, okay, do we have any transactions that have not been recorded? And the answer is yes. Okay, so we have this transaction right here, check number 104 for $350, and it was not listed anywhere on our piece of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the deposit of $200. Okay, so here's what we do with that. We are missing this check right here, check number 104, rent $350. Okay, so we're going to write that down here on the checks outstanding. Check number 104, $350. Okay, we don't have any other checks that are outstanding. That's it. So at this point, we would total these checks up, $350, and then we're going to use that number here in just a minute. Okay, so now let's move over to this side. This chart, I know there's not enough room quite in this chart, so we're going to write it to the side. You're going to use a combination of this number here and this number here. Okay, and then if we had outstanding deposits that weren't shown, like if you made a deposit of $200 but you weren't seeing it up here, then those would go here. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through that process. This $723 is the first number that we need. Okay, so $723. Okay, it says to add the deposits not shown. All of our deposits in our book were taken care of. We only had one deposit of $200 and one deposit of $700, and they are both listed here and here. Okay, so we don't have anything to put there. Okay, so we'll add nothing. Okay, so that equals 723. Okay, and I'm just following the instructions here. It told me to total it, so we totaled it. Okay, and now we're going to subtract our outstanding checks. Okay, so our outstanding checks, that number is going to come from here. Okay, so 723 minus $353. Okay, so this is the part where you're going to need your calculator for a moment. And don't be ashamed. Okay, so 723 minus 350. I'm like using my, I'm going to go like this because 723 minus 350. I was using my camera to see it and it was making me dizzy. Okay, so the final amount that we got was 373. Okay, so 373 is what goes here. And then at this point, what you need to do is you need to go look at your Excel spreadsheet. Is our last transaction amount 373? The answer is yes. So now we can put a check mark here and now you're good to go. So hopefully that explains the markings that you're going to see around the room and why they look the way that they do. And I can't emphasize enough, you have to go in order. You have to look at these transactions one at a time and actually verify them. List all the outstanding checks, even check the month before, because there's some checks that don't get deposited by the other person, so they don't leave your account for maybe 2-3 months. So if your number's not matching up down here, it's probably because of the outstanding checks, or maybe there's a deposit that you missed that needs to be recorded right here. So that's how you do this activity. I hope that this video helps you, and I hope that this helps you understand how to reconcile your account. Thanks for watching.